Welcome back to the Sad Dad Games podcast. I'm Shan.
I'm Eric.
I'm Tucker.
I'm Scott.
We're going to be doing a bonus episode of Death Stranding, and we will be doing some unexplored lore, things that I kind of thought about after the fact, tying up loose ends, and then we're just going to be exploring the theme and tying it to our own lives, sharing anecdotes, and seeing if we can learn anything from this game, which I think is the point of any great story. All right, so let's kick this pig. Did anybody watch that series on YouTube?
No.
It's a very old. Okay, well, it was a YouTube show in the early YouTube years of like some guy who was like dressed up as a ninja, and every time it's like he would share advice as a ninja.
Oh my gosh, was it Ask a Ninja?
It was Ask a Ninja.
I do remember Ask a Ninja.
It was very popular at our high school, and he'd always say, "Let's kick this pig."
I forgot about that. Yeah, you just awoken a memory in me that I had completely forgot. He does one about ninjas, which are midget ninjas. I don't know if you're allowed to say midget, but I just did.
I think everything's on the table these days.
Yeah.
But he had one that's like, "Let's kick this pig. What is the best way to start a strongly worded message to a retailer who has wronged you?" And I don't remember the response, but like I had these like little things memorized because back in the day there was only like a handful of YouTube videos, so you just watched them ad nauseum.
Yeah, there was like 10 good ones, and you just over and over. It was like Homestar Runner, Ask a Ninja, and something else probably. Yeah.
Yeah. Homestar Runner, it was just on repeat. Back when YouTube didn't
Strong
exist.
Bad Emails. Yeah.
I know that we're on YouTube, but can we destroy YouTube and go back to before YouTube?
Yes, please. In its heyday, like when I don't know, like 15-ish years ago, 20 years ago, when it was early and it was just like no one really knew what they were doing just yet. That was the good stuff.
Back when it was hard to put stuff online for people to consume, like everything that you could find was good, or at least it felt good.
And it was creative. Everybody here consume Rooster Teeth, at least for a while.
I watched like the first season of Red versus Blue, and I never really got back to it. But yeah,
well, is it on Netflix now? I swear I saw it on Netflix.
Oh my gosh, if it is,
that's amazing.
Catch up. It's so much catching up to do. Yeah.
Scott, did you not watch Red versus Blue?
No, not really. No, I'd heard about it, but I think I just barely missed it.
But... Oh, okay.
Yeah. Back then I would have cared about that a lot more.
I deeply miss alternative video platforms. Like, maybe controversial opinion, I miss Vine because it was...
I think doesn't everybody miss Vine?
Everybody missed Vine.
Yeah. Well, didn't miss it. I miss it because it was fantastic.
Oh, I see.
No, yeah.
It
That was like short form video at its peak.
It seemed stupid at the time, and now it's TikTok.
Yeah. And like 5-second films. I don't know if you guys ever watched 5-second.
Oh, I love 5-second films. They were great.
Yeah.
Those were good.
Yeah. Really miss those.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to go on a 5SF binge later today. I guess.
Well, yeah, because it's like the idea behind it is like you have 5 seconds to make somebody laugh. And it's like it cuts all the crap, and it's just perfect.
Yeah.
Anyway,
little micro doses of humor, fast and in your face is good stuff.
Oh yeah.
I don't think it's a controversial opinion to state that the internet sucks these days, and we're just trying to find little corners of it that we can enjoy while the rest of it burns.
So please like, comment, and subscribe. Make sure to tell all your friends. The internet is terrible except for us. Please follow us. Yeah.
Exactly. All right. So let's get into some lore. I have some random things that I thought about in the week or two after we had finished. And all right. This was something that Tucker and I got very heated about, and I think I've come around on it. Can a ha and a ka have separated motivation?
Okay, also very interesting because I pulled an Always Sunny, and we passed each other because I did a deep
Ships
dive
in the
and
night.
came around to your side of it.
Science is a liar sometimes.
Off the street.
Yeah.
We need to get guns on the street.
Yeah.
Oh, I love this. Look at you guys trying to meet each
All
other
right.
in the middle and then overcorrecting. Yeah.
All right, Tucker,
That's
since
beautiful.
you've done a deep dive, please share your side first, because usually I try to steamroll you before you can even start.
So let me get it out first. So then just sets it up so you can steamroll it after
Yeah.
the fact.
Okay, I'll
no,
do
I
a
think it's-
post steamroll.
Yeah, I mean, I think just just the ha and the caw, looking on message boards and just deep diving the internet seems to be a consensus that they would have the same character motivations. So I'm basing it more so off of what the internet has said and what the consensus there is. Which, I mean,
So you trust
I-
the
I-
internet more than
I
me.
I trust the internet more than Shane.
Implicitly
no,
trust everything you read online. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still intrigued by them having different motivations. I think that's a really cool concept, but it seems like I am in the minority there,
Right.
and I can get on board with them having the same character motivations and what led me there. I can come around to maybe I misinterpreted something. Maybe I misinterpreted character motivations. Maybe I attributed, because it is such small dialogue, so many little micro expressions that we're bound to get something wrong. I'm bound to get something wrong.
Yeah, the Decima
It's
engine can only
intriguing.
communicate so much,
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and just for context, you guys are talking about in the last episode, I think you were both on opposite sides of the argument about where could Bridget and Amelie have different motivations and different ways of dealing with the situation. That's what you guys are talking about, right?
Yes, we were wondering, could Amelie be a good person while Bridget be a dick? And I
The
was
answer is
saying no, they are
maybe. Yeah.
literally the same person. And
Yeah,
Eric
and I
was ardent that he didn't care at all, and that we had to move on.
Well, I hadn't thought about it enough to weigh in, so I was like, I don't know, or I don't care. Yeah.
So
But I
I'm
think-
curious. Oh, go ahead.
I would say, yeah, I think just all of us as human beings, there's a level of duality in all of us, of where we are. And so Bridget and Amelie being the same person, I can get around to. I can get around to Bridget feeling guilt, which means Amelie felt guilt, which is why she wanted to repatriate Sam in that moment. But having that duality split between the ha and the ka, I still think is an interesting concept.
Concept.
Yeah, exactly.
Nailed it.
You guys are
Terrible.
awful.
But yeah, I mean, the bottom line of it though is it took me down a pretty deep rabbit hole of like examining myself, and just like my humanity in general. So yeah, it was maybe a little bit heated moment that Eric couldn't give a shit about, but it was transformational for me of exploring my own soul.
All right, Scott,
Yeah.
what were you gonna say?
Yeah, I was about this whole Ha and Ka thing, and I'm thinking about Mama. She was separated from her Ka.
Yes,
And,
this is what I
like,
was going to get to.
Her Ka obviously wanted the baby,
Yeah,
but so
that's
did her
it.
Ha. But is that evidence of conflicting motivations, or is it the same motivation? They both wanted the same thing, so they both were, her Ha
So-
held on to it because it wanted it, but the Ka
Yeah,
also
can I-
wanted it, and it would have done the same thing. So what?
That's fascinating.
So
Can I
which
throw
is
maybe-
it? Does it support
Yeah.
or not? Which theory does
So-
it help?
I'm going to use a very personal example. Is I really want to lose weight. That is what my that's what my ka is.
You
Ka your
want-
soul. Ka is your soul.
You want
Ka
to
is your soul
send
and the ha
your
is your
Yeah,
body.
fat
so
to
my
the
so my
beach.
ka really wants to be in shape and not fat, but my ha and the dopamine receptors in my brain are saying, "Hey, give me a cookie because I need that feeling."
Better
So,
yet,
I
give
mean-
me 2 cookies.
Yeah, give me 2 cookies. Man, remember McDonald's cookies? 2 for
Man,
$1. What a
listen,
deal!
McDonald's
deal.
has really good cookies.
2 apple pies for $1.
Say what you like about McDonald's, they have really good chocolate chip cookies, like home cooked, delicious chocolate chip cookies.
That clown knows how to bake.
Sure does. Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that's kind of where I came more to like Shan's side of that argument is your body and your mind can want different things, but you're
I think
still
I said that exact
one
same
in the
thing
whole.
last time
Oh
when
my
you
gosh,
guys were
Eric,
at each
shut up.
other's
Let
throat.
me take credit for it.
Okay, sorry. All right, this is all Tucker's idea. Even though I said that verbatim last time we were talking and you guys were too busy arguing with each other.
All right. Well, I had the exact same epiphany that Scott just shared, that Mama had become severed from her Ka, and at that moment, I hadn't made the consideration Scott just made, that maybe it is an identical motivation to want the baby back. However, on that could just align back to the original theory that it's the same motivation. On the other hand, could you say it's a different motivation if one is motivated to bring it to the afterlife and one is trying to bring it to the real world or keep it in the real world?
So
Is that
motivation is the same, but
nuanced?
outcome is different.
I don't know if that's nuanced enough, because one is because the motivation for the outcome of the baby is different.
Yeah, I think it's.
So I
it's
think the
a layered-
motivation can be the same, but the destination
No,
is
it
different.
depends.
Like
No, it's
because
for the. If it's selfish, then it's the same motivation. If it's
Yeah.
for the baby, then it's a different motivation.
That's
like, I think
exactly
you
what I
can-
was going to say.
I think you
Yeah.
can apply to like in a political sense is you have kind of generic politicians from both sides. Their motivation is this is maybe a little altruistic, but the best for the nation. But their means of getting there and their outcomes of what they think is ideal is a lot different than from each other. Even though that motivation is still the same, what they feel as the correct outcome is different. And so I think that could maybe be implied from Mama is both of them want the baby, but
I want to
there's
see the
different
baby.
outcomes. Yeah.
Of what my baby. So, I guess we still don't know 100%, but it's possible that at the moment of being severed, that is when it's possible that the motivations bifurcate. But we don't
Or
know
can,
for sure yet.
right? Or can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm going to fence it again. And I think that it's still like they're, the Ka and the Ha are the same person for sure. But I do also like the idea of like the mind and the body wanting different, like being able to want different things. Tucker's weight loss analogy makes a lot of sense to me. But so I think that when the Ka and the Ha are separated,
That's
that's
a cool
when
word.
Yeah.
separated.
Keep us saying this word
Nailed
separated.
it. Yeah.
And I love it.
Awesome.
So I lost my thought a little bit there, but I think that I think there's a little bit of both. It's they come from the same origin point, that they're the same person at their core, but you can kind of like, there can be some nuanced differences to their desires and motivations, I think.
No, yeah, when they're in the same body, they are forced to reconcile, and at that point they are in balance and they are the same being. But when they're bifurcated, it is possible for them to go in different directions. I think that's a fair way to put it.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that.
All right, next question. Was Higgs an actual repatriate? No, he just was.
Yeah.
No,
I
don't
thought,
think
did
so,
they clear
yeah.
that up?
He gave it
Yeah, didn't they
to
explicitly
Amelie, gave
say
him dooms.
Yes. So he kept alluding to we both die here at the beach, and there's no repatriation here. I think he just in his egomaniacal sense of the world and thinking he's like the pharaoh, he's the particle of God, I think he maybe thought he could repatriate, but the only person in the world that created an imbalance that instigated the Death Stranding was Sam. He's the only repatriate, and now Louise presumably is a repatriate. So Higgs never repatriated. He he could have died in the beach, but he was not a repatriate.
Yeah, I guess now that you mention it, we don't, because it said that Die Hardman was a repatriate, but he's actually not. And so I think that throughout the game, the only one that we have concrete evidence that actually is a repatriate is Sam.
Well,
I hadn't even thought about that.
The revelation of Sam causing the Death Stranding makes sense of like a repatriate is not a common thing. It is a very, very unique.
And maybe unique to Sam. Yeah. Even. It might even be just Sam.
It's literally only Sam.
Yeah.
If the others had, would that have accelerated the Death Stranding even more? Would it have caused more of an imbalance, or was it more of just a Sam did it once and so the dam was broken? You know? No,
so
or would it have been more?
Well,
Amelie had said that for Sam to make the ultimatum of watching the world blow up, or to watch it go on for another 100,000 years, he had to be at her beach. That was what restored the balance of life and death. And if there were more repatriates, there would have to be other repatriates on the beach waiting out that last stranding.
Okay. Yes, that makes sense. Okay.
All right. I mean, technically Higgs was on the beach, so he could still, like, there could be a sneaky way that he was a repatriate, but
sneak attack.
He shouldn't be. Because we never heard of him dying and Amelie preserving his life. All right. That would be pretty sneaky, but I just don't see it. All right. So how does Amelie have a ha if she was born on the beach? Okay. Her ha was born on the beach simultaneously that Bridget was born as a ha. They were tethered by her strand, which connected them. And Mama's umbilical cord lore helps elucidate this mechanic. So, wait, okay. I wrote this down, and I was hoping that it kind of like makes sense as I was reading it. Okay, yes. So Amelie was born on the beach at the same time that Bridget was born in real life. They were so it's really just like any person. The Ha and the Ka are born in their own planes of existence at the exact same. No, wait. I guess Kas are born in the real world and they have a beach, but they're not born on a beach.
I wonder if it has to do with her being an extinction entity. I wonder if extinction entities in the past were born with severed Kas and Has, similarly to how Bridget and Amelie were.
No, I think what it's saying is like normal people are born with their cause in the real world, and then when they die, they have to make their journey back to their beach. But extinction entities are born on the beach simultaneously.
So that's a little confusing to me because the Amelie is frozen in time at whatever
at the time they severed.
At the time they severed, and so she wouldn't have been born on the beach.
She says she was born on the beach.
So let me hypothesize something, and we can. This might be wrong. It's a thought I'm just having as we're talking. But so when a person dies and their Ka and their Ha are severed, it would stand to reason that their body, their Ha dies or whatever, and their Ka goes to the beach and remains ageless. It doesn't age past that. Which would make sense if when Bridget and Amelie were severed at around the age of 20, I wonder if that's why she didn't age anymore. That something about her being an extinction entity and then the stress of getting cancer and what that did to Bridget's Ha caused a sever. Because she was an extinction entity, that stress might have caused them to separate, and Amelie remained ageless on the beach while Bridget continued to age.
Mm-hmm. I don't think I know exactly what I was thinking at the time I wrote this, and so I'm just going to move on. I don't want to think too much about it. Why did Amelie use dolls as totems to her beach? And I think it's just because obviously it was a reminder of her pivotal character change back when she sent Sam, when she returned Sam via repatriation.
I think also because they are very visually closely connected to BBs and the BB project, which was important to Bridget.
Mm.
Yeah.
All right. Were Higgs and Amelie colluding or not, and why?
I think Amelie was using Higgs.
Yes.
By making Higgs think they were colluding when,
Yes. So she was manipulating.
Feel similarly. Yeah, I feel similarly that she was selling Higgs this vision of like, yeah, let's do this, let's cause the Death Stranding, when really she was using Higgs as a pawn to get Sam to her beach.
Yeah.
Right. So she wanted to expedite the last stranding. And so every time that he thought that he was manipulating her with his dooms, she was just kind of playing along. And she was just testing humankind because she wanted to see if they were resilient enough and they would adapt to become stronger in case Sam chose to preserve humankind, so that they would be strong enough to go another 100,000 years. It was a very complicated motivation, but essentially that's what it is. Okay. What did the T section...
we're burning through these lore questions. This is great.
Yeah. All right. What did the T section represent, and why did Cliff have one too? I did end up talking about this, I think, in the last episode. All right. So the T section, it healed Sam's gunshot wound. It represented the cross of life and death, and it removed his physical representation of birth. I hadn't considered that originally, but it removed his umbilical cord. So it removed his physical representation of birth because he was born again from the beach. And Cliff was also shot, but his seemed to be a symbolic representation on the beach of his connection to Sam. And Amelie seems to be repatriating him through beaches, but not into real life. So Amelie, if I understand this right, like Cliff seems to be going through a pseudo repatriation that Amelie's allowing him to do into other beaches. So I think it's more of a symbolic thing. I don't know. But it seems like also just a symbolic connection to Sam. I just, do you have any other reason why he would also have that scar?
So I'm sorry. I'm thinking.
Cliff has it.
No, so Cliff has one, Sam has one, and then some of the dolls do, right?
Yes.
But it's not, we don't see that scar on anybody else, do we?
No.
So
it's a repatriate scar, but the scar is only specifically because Amelie healed a gunshot wound on Sam. So it's not a required scar to be a repatriate. It's just because he was shot.
Yeah, I wonder if...
but Cliff was shot too.
It's acting as some kind of a tether, it tethers Sam to the real world, so he's able to repatriate, and it tethers Cliff to the beaches, so he's able to sort of repatriate, but like only back into the beaches and not into the real world. I'm forming these thoughts as I'm having them, so I don't know if that's actually what it is, but there does seem to be some symbolism connected to Sam and some symbolism potentially connected to repatriation that isn't fully realized in Cliff. Maybe.
It's not fully explained. Maybe they'll do. I don't know that Cliff will be back in the next game, so it might just be.
I don't know what
unresolved.
he would. Yeah, what he.
Well, I think he's gone to the next. I think he's moved on. I think he's resolved.
Yeah, same.
I was looking it up. So sorry if I missed this, but was Cliff shot in the stomach? I couldn't find any.
I'm not sure. He might have been, but he wasn't repatriated. So that scar.
Yeah. So I was thinking like the scar is maybe not about repatriation. The scar is maybe just symbolic because didn't Sam as a BB, didn't he get shot? I mean, he's a little tiny fetus, so I feel like the stomach size is kind of naturally.
It's like a bullet hole this big. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if it's something to do with. They both got shot in the same place. They have this scar. It's not necessarily about repatriation, but it's what they both died the same way.
Well, they might have both been shot in the stomach. I'm not sure about where Cliff was shot, but that's how Amelie healed him, is by healing the gunshot wound with a cross. And so Cliff didn't get healed, so he wouldn't have a scar unless off screen Amelie healed him. But he wouldn't have a giant gaping stomach wound unless he was like shot 50 times. I don't know. I guess he was shot
like a
lowercase
lowercase
t. So maybe off screen she jumps into the seam and she heals his gunshot wounds so that he can run around other beaches. Maybe it literally is that.
Maybe. Was it last
she
time
did
that
push
we
him back through the seam?
Was it last time that we were talking about the cross being like an intersection as well, like an intersection of two worlds?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what we talked about?
Yeah.
Just kind of representing that, and him being Sam Bridges, the intersection or a bridge between the two worlds.
All right. Yeah.
Or maybe maybe it's a symbolic of an intersection between life and death, which is the beach, before you actually move on. And so those that are constantly on the beach have that scar. I don't know.
Right.
Half-baked theory.
All right. What was Luis's purpose in the structure of the story?
A red herring.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nailed it.
Oh,
Well,
I see what you're saying. Because she wasn't the Cliff's baby.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit.
And that's not your baby.
Yeah. I remember the first time playing the game, the whole time I thought that that of course you think that Clifford is looking for your BB, that's his BB. It's the same, one and the same. And I spent the whole game trying to guess the significance of this baby. I was like, is it, is this BB, connected? Is it Sam's sibling? Is it his Sam's unborn child that would have been his child? Is it? And I the whole time trying to guess, and I never guessed that it was just literally just a random BB that Sam developed a huge connection with.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, what a twist.
I mean, red herring is, functionally the most important reason, but also, it losing a child was the moment he became disconnected and became isolated in the world and developed his most core character trait that motivates him and defines who he is. And that is what he has to overcome in order to change the world. And when he has accomplished that, he is rewarded with the return of a family. So other than a red herring, it is also just a reward for having accomplished his character journey.
Yeah. So like Eric, thoughts are coming and I'll just share them as they're coming to me, but I know we're going to eventually get there, but I'm thinking about how you as a player become connected with BB and come to rely on BB as well. And at the end of the game, when Cliff is giving his great speech about becoming a father, thinking that it was going to make him scared, but it had the opposite effect. It made him brave. When you first get connected with BB, and Dead Man is giving you all sorts of warnings about all this awful stuff that can happen, right? And it sounds pretty scary. But then you get connected with BB, and BB helps you. BB helps you see the monsters in the world, right? And you really feel BB's absence when you don't have her for a while in that one episode. And you realize that having BB makes you brave. I don't know, because you can go out and you can see these things. BB helps you that way.
Yeah, I hadn't realized that literal and direct connection to Cliff's monologue towards the end is the game has you experience those feelings as like an adoptive father to Lou. Is that when Lou is there, you feel more empowered, you feel more capable, and you feel like a team, and you're able to be more brave. And then Cliff expresses that same sentiment towards the end of the game. just another little nugget of gameplay and story being really well thought out and really cohesive to bring a message across. I love that.
Okay, why did Sam have low-level dooms if Amelie is the one that grants dooms?
I wonder if Amelie maybe inadvertently gave him dooms when she repatriated him for the first time.
So
because that was the start of everything, right? The start of the Death Stranding.
Why would she not take it back if she inadvertently did? Because she took it away from Higgs at will, you know?
Yeah. Is it a Harry Potter Horcrux kind of situation? Because that's what it feels like. I'm just like, Sam was a Horcrux Amelie never meant to create.
Yeah.
I think that's right. That's excellent. I think his dooms was inevitable and irreversible, at least at the lowest level, from repatriation, and so she just didn't want to grant more than that. And as for Higgs, he just, maybe he was just knocked down to the lowest level, or maybe he could have all of it taken away. We just know that he had the level of dooms taken away where he couldn't control anything, which is like the highest level dooms.
Well, and we also need to remember that Amelie views Sam as a brother and a son through her Ka and her Ha. And so she loves Sam and probably understands that taking away his dooms would mean that he wouldn't be a repatriate anymore and would die, and doesn't want that for him. So maybe she let him keep his dooms so that he could stay alive.
Yeah. Well, he also needed to have his dooms because she wanted him to have all of these nightmares, because she didn't want more, because he was afraid of his nightmares as a kid, and but he needed to have these visions of the future and to tie them together so that he could survive long enough to make the final decision of whether to preserve mankind or not. And he was the only one that could make that decision.
The hand strikes and gives a flower.
All right, I'm going to plow through some of these because they're a little longer. All right, to explain Amelie's presence throughout the game, she has 3 states. Bridget is her Ha in the physical world, and she dies. Amelie is always on the beach. Amelie can project herself into the real world through chirality. When Amelie is projecting into the real world, she slowly diverged in age from Bridget and was then called her daughter. Amelie projected herself across America. She was never caught, and that was a ruse to get Sam connecting the UCA. So this whole time we're trying to figure out, is she real? Is she not? It's really just she had 3 different ways of manifesting herself. And sometimes she was a vision too. So I guess 4.
She's a slippery one. Really trying to figure out what in the world was going on with Amelie was one of the game's greatest mysteries.
Mm-hmm. All right, this one's gonna get it's gonna sound like word soup, and I haven't reread it since I wrote it, and so it might not make it. It's gumbo. I wrote it a couple weeks ago.
Get that cut it out marker ready just in case you ramble. Yeah.
You know what? Emily hasn't been cutting anything out. I don't even know if the markers are working.
Ooh, calling her out live on the air. Yeah.
She's live in the recording to post later on.
All right. Explain the BT's presence. The floating cause are the dead stranded in the real world with an umbilical cord connected to the beach. I don't know if I believe that anymore. And they have failed to cross. I think the umbilical cords are connected to the physical world. I don't know if they're connected. Pin in that. I'm not sure. All right. The physical BTs are vessels of Kyrellium infused with Ka from the beach that are manifesting in the real world through Kyrellium portals. All right. So they've been pulled through Kyrellium portals. They are Kas that are surrounded in Kyrellium. The BTs are always at the location where they died. They can't migrate with timefall. They are tethered to their death location.
But their presence causes timefall.
Yes.
Yes.
Timefall is just the spectral matter that elucidates their presence.
That's what I just said, but dumber. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, and so like if the time fall isn't there, you wouldn't be able to accidentally touch them. You need the chiral matter from the time fall to be able to touch them and for them to manifest, because it creates that distortion in space time to be able for them to for our space time to collide.
It thins
Physically.
the boundary between the beach and the real world.
Yes, Scott.
Yeah.
We've seen a few examples where that isn't true, though. But Mama
Really?
breaks all the rules because we see her baby just fine inside a building, and there's no time fall going on.
We also
her
see
baby
that
is
with Sam
infused
at
with
the very
Kyrellium.
What's that?
Her baby's
we also
infused
see
with
that-
Kyrellium. So it's Kyrellium that breaks the boundary. There's Kyrellium in the umbilical cord.
Right. What about the babies that happen at the very end of the game? The ones that
Kyrellium.
Kyrellium. Okay.
I think it's in the umbilical cord. I could just be wrong about this, to your point. But I think
I like it. I'm just trying to
contain
find if there are
Kyrellium.
any exceptions, like a black swan type thing,
I wonder if it's just a higher concentration of BTs is what causes time fall. That if there's just one, and because Mama's situation was sort of unique since her her Ka left and sort of fused with her baby, that's why that man was able to physically manifest for her, and it wasn't because of the presence of the time fall.
Well, and we saw a BT enter the incinerator at the beginning, so it's not like you have to be directly under Timefall. It could just be that like Timefall has brought Kyrellium in the area and that it has evaporated in the area, and and they can move through that. I don't know, something like that.
I forget. Does it rain a lot around Mama's little where she's hanging out?
She's near the explosion site.
Yes, that's right. So there's still presence of timefall, just not inside the building, which could potentially boost the presence of Kyrellium even inside structures.
Possibly that's what's going on. I could be wrong about this. All right. Gazer BTs instinctively want to move on. They're the ones that are in our world that are trying to get to the beach. So they want to move on, so they are trying to use you to do it, or they are craving connections. So I wasn't sure about their motivations. I think they're trying to get to the next world.
You're talking about the motivations of them being hostile to you.
Yes.
Yeah,
Like,
I was
why are
always
they
curious
trying
about
to
that.
create? Why are they trying to cause void outs?
Yeah, I could never determine if they were trying to move on or if it was more of a misery loves company type situation, because we know that they're around because of unresolved anger, resentment, lot of like negative emotions type thing. So what does that have to do with them wanting to, like, why does having you around help them move on, with that? Or is it just they're around it and they just want to spread that misery around? They're kind of like the mules, they've been distorted somehow and they just get fixated on like these negative emotions, and so they're just continuing to be negative for no real purpose other than it's become an obsession and their driving motivation.
All right. Well, that was my guess. All right. So we'll move on from that. Catcher BTs, which are like the cosmic entities that are pulled through by Higgs and the such, they are trying to annihilate you because they need to cause the last stranding. And the catcher BTs are an amalgamation of many singular BTs. So they can be like 100 or 1,000 individuals that have been absorbed into a giant entity. And so that
Giant
whale at the end
tentacle
was
lion.
probably 100,000 of them. Yeah.
Or 3 Tuckers.
And
That was a self-deprecating bad joke that nobody got besides Aaron. It's always funny.
the black BTs that pull you down, and then they pull you over to the catcher BTs. I tried watching this and the black BTs pull you down, but it's actually the spectral BTs that drag you to the higher density Kyrellium for the catcher BTs to fight you, which was kind of backwards from what I expected. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm kind of fuzzy on that. Also, you get a like if you sever a gazer. So that means that it likes to die and move on. So that's why I kind of clued in about the motivation.
I don't remember getting likes for. I don't remember.
Well, I read it online. I don't remember seeing
though,
it, but
I mean that would support that theory
yeah.
though, that they're trying to move on.
Yeah, it's like thank you for killing me.
Yeah,
I get to move on to the afterlife.
It's
now.
Terminator thumbs up. Just
yeah.
All right. Might have to skip a few of these. Let's see. The mutilated dolls with nails and a T-section are specific to Unger and his beach. There are other dolls of varying decay, but Unger's dolls are specific to his trauma. Amelie and Unger both use dolls as beach totems. Because Amelie, it was because she repatriated Sam, but Unger, he's also traumatized by losing his BB.
Yeah, I think it represents where his are always so mutilated. Represents the pain that came from that moment for Unger. Is how I take that.
Yeah. Okay. Why did the big?
Yeah,
oh, go on.
No, I was just curious, why the babies, why the baby dolls, and Cliff is talking about being a bridge from the past to the future, right? A lot. He talks about Sam being a bridge from the past to the future. And that made me think losing a child, there's so much pain in the past, but there's also a lot of pain about the future as well, like a what could have been kind of thing. And is that what they're going for? Maybe. I mean, why babies? Why baby dolls at all in this game? For that kind of bridge.
Well, they couldn't use physical babies.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking the fact of you bring to the beach what's important to you, and where you can't bring a physical baby, maybe these dolls are taking its place of this is as close as I can get to bringing what's truly the most important to me to these beaches. And where Unger's is, I feel like his beaches are always littered with dolls. It's, I think, just emphasizing how important it was. And it's not just kind of a totem like we see with Sam or Die Hardman with the gun. It's literally everything to him, and it's always there. It's always present, and it's always a mainstay in his beach and in his scenes.
Yeah,
is this doll.
All right. Why did the Big Five appear to Sam at the beginning of the game?
I still don't fully understand
friendly.
the significance of their presence in the moments when they appear. So I'd be excited to hear what other people have to say, because I'm
with you. I'm with you too, Eric. I've been stewing on this for a while, and I don't know why.
Because it's the Big Five are the previous extinction entities, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That
I
failed.
think they just no. Well, they brought it. Yeah. I think this was the only one that was supposed to be the biggest of all. I don't think they were all supposed to be the last of all of them and failed. But yeah, I like to think of them as failures too. I mean, that's kind of funny.
Bunch of idiots.
So dumb. But
explode all of civilization.
It is funny that the other extinction entities were just like megalodons and stuff like that. That's funny.
I love the idea that it's that they're not humans. It's like one of the extinction entities is some tiny dinosaur, and then another one is maybe it was a woolly mammoth.
Period.
Yes, some snail from the Jurassic period is the extinction entity. Yeah.
It's a Leopleurodon.
A magical Leopleurodon, Charlie. It has led us the way. It didn't say anything.
Was that the Charlie the Unicorn?
Yeah.
Speaking
Yes.
about the heyday of the internet. Yeah.
If you ever find yourself being critical of the rising generation's sense of humor, just remember
just
that.
watch that. And you're like, oh yeah, I get it.
Oh, I remember we were all stupid. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I showed a Gen Z Charlie the Unicorn. She watched it like for weeks. It was the only thing she watched. It's like, yeah, we still got it.
Oh yeah, my kids love it.
So great. It really tapered off. It's really just like the first two, though. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, I don't even think I finished my thought, but I think they know that he is the catalyst for the last stranding, and they are observing the one who will decide. And so, I just think they're just always silently observing, and they want to see what will happen.
Just a bunch of snails, all powerful
Bunch of
snails, checking it out.
A snail. No, an ammonite, a megalodon, a leopleurodon. A magical leopleurodon at that. Okay, explain the scene. These are not in order. Just like me randomly stewing at night. Okay, so this is me just gonna vamp again. I'm gonna get things wrong. You can challenge me. Okay, the water is the tar that seeps into the world during high chiral density.
The water of the beach.
Yes. So
Okay.
the water of the beach is what, like, when you have a catcher gazer event and you have those things seeping, like, coming into our world, that is the seam's water rising into our world, the tar. All right. The floating strands are the beach's umbilical cords back to the stranded BTs. This was me guessing, and I feel like I need to figure out what I was saying here. Because when you're in the seam, there are strands in the seam, and when you're in the real world, there are also floating BTs, and they have umbilical cords. So I think that the strands inside the seam are connected to the floating BTs, and they are connected to this. I think that's their connection to the seam.
Well, that would make sense because the umbilical cords, the BT's umbilical cords, always come out of the ground. They're not floating up into the sky, so they're coming out of the ground where the water and the muck and stuff is seeping in from the beach. So that makes sense from a physical perspective.
Yeah, so I think this is what I was alluding to in the previous catcher gazer section. Is like I think the umbilical cords are not specifically tied to the beach, but tied to the seam. All right. The BTs that surface are the tar BTs that are attempting to pull you under. So when you're in the seam, you can see the white BTs that are floating. I think I'm also, at this point, I was also talking about, you can see regular BTs, but you can also see the cosmic BTs. But the ones that surface and are trying to pull you under, that are in the seam, those are the tar monsters that are trying to pull you under when you're in the real world. Because imagine it's just the ocean water is the tar, and they're just popping up from the seam, and they're like, I'm gonna get you down in here in the seam because I'm trying to kill you, you belong in the seam.
I'm gonna get you. Yeah.
Because imagine it like this. It's as if you are a soul that's not supposed to have ever left the seam, and they are trying to get you back in the seam. That is their primary motivation as a cosmic BT. You have escaped the seam. You belong back in the seam. That's my motivation. You belong in here. I'm going to get you back in here.
Well, they do also try to pull not repatriates into the seam as well. Like we see at the beginning with what's his face? And not Edgar. What's Igor? Where the hands grab him and they're trying to pull him into the seam, and he's not a repatriate, so it's not like he escaped the seam and it belongs there.
but they're trying to pull his Ka in there. They're just trying to pull Ka's in there because that's where Ka's belong.
Okay. Yeah, I can get on board with that.
Yeah, I think just if we boil it down to the whole reason why these extinction events keep on happening is because it's the balancing out of the Big Bang. And if BTs are trying to incorporate that balance, they're trying to speed along the extinction process. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's their motivation for wanting to cause void outs. They're trying to speed along the process because their core motivation, I think, is to balance things out, which in turn leads to them trying to accelerate the extinction process.
Yes, they're trying to expedite death, which involves bringing as many Kas into the seam as possible, and then fold the seams in on each other to rip a hole in the seam time-space continuum like we saw with the whale at the end, I guess. But if you think about like all the cosmic BTs, they are like guardians in the seam. You have the ones that float over the top, and you have the ones that are in the seam, and they are just constantly looking around for regular BTs that are trying to escape the seam so that they can grab them and pull them back under, and the ones that are floating on top are trying to grab them and push them back down. And so when they get pulled out by like Higgs or by Amelie, they have the same motivation of like, I still just think that everything I see is a BT that has escaped the seam. I got to get you back down there. They don't distinguish. They just got to get you back down there. Is that fair? All right.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
All right. Okay. Yeah, fish and whales swim upside down. We have seen that now at the final part of the game. So this was something that they don't explain and barely caught it at the last minute. Only chiral coded items are found in the seam. And this is why, like, Hartman uses a chiral hourglass to tell time when he's floating back to his body in the seam. But also, when you have died and you're trying to repatriate, you see a bunch of suitcases. Those have been coded because they've been printed through the chiral printers and stuff like that, or you've run through Timefall. And you've had these void outs that have happened around Timefall or through a Catcher Gazer event where the tar has seeped up. Like everything. And also you can see chiral structures that have been chirally printed. Those are also seen while you're repatriating. So everything that is chirally printed is seen in the seam. It's incredible.
Interesting. I never noticed that.
Okay, so time does not stop in the seam. Oh, yeah, so this was me explaining the hourglass, so I already went over that just now. The black version of your body in the seam is where your Ha dissolved into the seam via Kyrellium, and the other is the chiral beacon projection of your Ha.
So one of them is where your Ka and Ha were separated, and then the other one is the beacon trying to pull you back to your Ha.
Yes. Yeah. One of them, you can't think of them both as physically real. One is a projection, and it's just saying, come back here if you want to live. And that's why there's a baby in it, is because it's not real. It's just saying, come back here. If you do, then you'll repatriate.
Right.
Interesting. Okay.
All right. It's a lot of metaphysical nonsense, so it's hard for you to challenge me on any of that because it was just me smoking a doobie at night.
Sure, that sounds right. Who knows? Yeah.
And there's nobody who has offered any other nonsense out there. Here's the thing about me and all my conjecture is that I don't go online and really look for anybody else's answers. I just sit here and I think about it and I come up with my own answers because I think everybody else on the internet is just as dumb as I am. So why not come up with my own answers?
It's hard to argue with that logic. Yeah.
Okay. So while you were talking about this, I brought up a note because I read
Okay.
some mail from the spiritualist where she talks about this
Okay.
a little bit. And I know we don't typically give any stock into anything the spiritualist says.
She says there were pyramids in the mountains, so whatever.
Right. But
In
let's see.
America.
Yeah. This is what I wrote. Spiritualist mentioned seeing someone else in the scene. I remember I saw that once. A dark, shadowy thing that had my name above it, said the Hillman. That's my Steam tag. It says I couldn't interact with it. And then from her message, it said someone from the past. So in essence, the past is intervening to keep the present alive. That's all she said in her message. I'm not exactly sure what that means. Plus, it could just be a bunch of baloney.
What? Okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. The BBT and the adjacent handprints. I don't even know if I came up with anything better, but okay, the BT is the ghostly apparition in the real world. The BT handprints are the living creature in the seam. Unsevered, they both exist.
I think in previous episodes, I had explained this as likening it sort of like a fourth dimensional being. I feel like now that we have more understanding, I don't think that I would classify them as a fourth dimensional being, but they are an otherworldly being that exists in another dimension. And when trying to manifest physically in the actual world, the physical world, that there would be some kind of weird disconnect with how the Kyrellium handprints and their chiral projections, like the shadowy figures connected to the umbilical cords, how those two things would display separate from one another, but would still be joined. And I like, because the beach and the water from the beach in the seam is what's directly connected to our world in sort of a physical way, like it's upside down underneath it. It makes sense that the hands would be, it's like they're walking not on their hands, but that they're pressing up against the surface, the boundary between our world with their hands. So that's kind of what I imagined that.
I think this was me revisiting this thought right after I was thinking about how the seam being the tar, and how the BTs travel through it and such. And I was like, okay, well, if the BTs that are floating above the world are the ones that have unresolved issues and they're trying to get into the seam to move on, then, and the BTs that are in the seam are what they are trying to join up with, because we see because we see the floating version of Sam in there. I think everybody has a version of that, because like when Cliff dies, he has that in there. So there's the floating version, there's the version in the seam, and before you die, it can probably move around or something. And I imagine that version's moving around, and the hands can touch the world. It can through the seam. So I think they can both exist at the same time.
Yeah, I think that was kind of the thought I was having, but articulated with more clarity. So I agree with that.
All right. And okay, so what happened to Lucy? There's some lore that talks about this. Lucy committed suicide while she was pregnant, which caused the void out he discovered 7 months along. So that's how he lost his child. He was a key member of Bridges, but resigned from pressure and blame. He started as she had started as Sam's therapist to overcome his phobia and abandonment issues. She didn't believe his repatriation and beach, but they fell in love, and eventually she resigned. She suffered from dooms from Sam's blood inside of her in the baby. Bridget had said the beaches and nightmares were real. She was terrified of the life ahead, and it was questioned if this was orchestrated by Bridget or Amelie. So we were yeah, we were right that like it was essentially the nightmares of dooms that lead people to suicide because of the existential dread of what was ahead and not wanting to deal with it. If you saw that there was an imminent version of the world ending and you don't know how soon it is, that makes sense.
Well, and this also, I don't know how much of this Sam knows, but if he understands exactly what happened, that she had dooms because of him, then there's a part of Sam that I'm sure feels responsible for that because he gave her dooms in a roundabout way, and those dooms caused her to go crazy with fear and yeah.
Okay. That's sad.
Yeah. All right. And did we already talk on the podcast about Higgs tattoos, the Higgs boson formula?
Yeah, we did.
Yes.
So I think that's cool. Everything as far as... So that took an hour, exactly as I had hoped.
Nice.
Yeah.
5 minutes ahead of schedule. Exactly on schedule.
Right on schedule. Okay, that was lore cleanup. And I didn't want to stew on it any longer. I already knew that was going to take forever. And I'm sure there's plenty that we left along the way. But I'm hoping when we get to Death Stranding 2, he'll just answer questions because we were going to get it wrong anyway.
It's going to be a pre-game scrolling Star Wars words to the sky that said, hey, I listened to the Sad Dad Games podcast, and these are the questions they had. Let me clarify everything. And because Hideo is a big listener.
Yeah, he is.
From YouTube statistics.
Yeah. Did I already explain this? That he had specifically said decades ago, there was like, he used to love this commentator on movies and they'd have to watch it live and they would... Did I already explain this?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like... Okay. Well,
I don't remember
that this was a talent and an art that he used to love, where like in between they would narrate or explain movies as they would come on, and then in between breaks it would explain like what had happened. It would help deconstruct the movie's themes and stuff like that. And he said that eventually as things advanced, that was a lost art and those roles were deprecated essentially. Just as that, I think I just used that word because I'm a dev and it's not the right word. But as he was explaining this and how he thought, and he specifically says like, I wish that could come back in some form because he felt connected. He felt like it helped him process things and understand stories better. I was like, is that not exactly what we're doing in some way with this? And then he also had talked about how important it is to connect through stories and all of this, and how it's essentially he's ideological about it, about how stories are memes and how important it is to pass culture on through that and how we all need to connect through it. And I was like, is this not like, I think if he found us, he would love us. Like, I think we have found specific, so. Yeah. I think we found a specific formula that he would just be enamored with.
Yeah. So Kojima, please find us. We think we're cool, subscribe. And you should too. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So at the top, the first time that I played this game, I focused on connection because it was the most important thing at the time to me, because we were going through COVID. And the second time we played just now, I focused on fatherhood. It's what hit me the hardest. And in the book that I had just read, so this book that I keep alluding to is called The Creative Gene, and it's the book that Kojima had written, and it's essentially it's just a compendium of all of his favorite essays of him explaining all of his favorite literature and movies and music that has inspired him up until now, so that he can share that with everyone else to better understand what inspires him to be creative, and also share anecdotally like what makes him him. But in that book, he said that memes are contextual to the moment that we experience them, and I thought that it perfectly encapsulated how I felt about this game, because this game as a meme to me during COVID was about connection, and I thought the message of how Mads Mikkelsen delivered his performance was unrivaled, but I didn't connect to it because I wasn't a father. And the second time, COVID had long passed, and I was sobbing at the end about fatherhood and what it meant to me now, because my daughter has just turned 3, and my wife is pregnant with a second. And so, yeah, I thought he got that exactly right, is that memes are specific to the moment that we experience them. So what hit you the hardest this time?
I mean, just to piggyback off of your answer, Shan, I was a father the first time I played this game, but still was really hit with the themes of connection. And the second time, the moments that stood out to me the most were the moments with Mads Mikkelsen and his search for his BB. Not always specifically fatherhood related, but I just was really focused in on his performance and what that meant, particularly towards the end, his monologue about how becoming a father made him brave. I don't really remember that specifically from the first game, but it was possibly the most significant moment for me this playthrough. Was that little monologue he gives. I think it's incredibly powerful and really, really stood out to me this time.
Yeah, for me, it's the first time. It was I was kind of very similar situation with Shan, where it was more focused on connection, and COVID for me wasn't, I guess, mentally hard with losing the connections, but the adverse effects from losing those connections were really hard, and so that's really what hit me, was kind of just a different level of connection. It's not the connection itself; it's this side effects, if you will, or the byproducts of what connections can do. And then this last playthrough, my daughter just turned 1, so still really young, still a baby, and what's burned in my mind is the last scene where Norman Reedus is breaking Lou out of the case and is just begging Lou to live and breathe, and that was one of just I don't know if it was just the culmination of the entire game with Sam choosing, but to me it felt like he was choosing the ultimate connection, and for me that's what fatherhood has brought. I wasn't expecting it, but it's this ultimate connection where there's not, it's a very unique connection that I don't think you can get anywhere else. Of just being in charge of an entire life. And so this playthrough, I completely lost it when you see all the little BT babies all lined up behind Norman Reedus holding Lou, who just started to breathe, of just this amalgamation of my life and this game really kind of hitting the same chord at the exact same time.
I had a second to just the moment where Sam jumps in the middle and is protecting Cliff, and Cliff essentially endows Sam, or passes the mantle of fatherhood onto him. Gosh, I have taken stock of the realization that I have only so much time left with my parents, and it has given me a lot of respect and realization of who my parents are, and I've taken a lot of I'm being a lot more intentional with my time. There was something that I had heard on some random podcast where somebody's like, I live in California, and somebody's like, well, where do your parents live? And they live in some other state. And it's like, how often do you see them? Like twice a year. And he's like, okay, so your parents probably have so many years left to live, and so you're going to see them 10 more times before they die. And he said that broke him, and he sold everything that he sold his house, and he moved out like a month later, and he sees his parents like, you know, every other day now, and has ever since. And so yeah, other than just like specifically who I am as a father, it made me realize that I have to do everything I can to learn to be a father from my dad, because he had so much to learn that I took for granted, and I was losing out on. So even just like a week ago, I went out of my way. I had the money to pay for somebody to do my brakes, and I intentionally bought brakes, and I drove my car to his place, and I had him teach me how to do it again. I had already done it before, but I had forgotten after 10 years, and I was like, no, you need to teach me how to do this again, because I need this moment with you. And this game, like, it had reminded me of like how much I need these moments, because I could lose it at any time.
Oh, I love that. And that story about, you know, having like 10 more visits with your parents before they're gone. I have a similar thing with my oldest. My oldest is 15, which means before they're an adult, we have 3 summers with them left. You know, it's not a lot.
It's crazy.
You know, but then again, you know, in this economy, it's probably closer to 10 more summers with them. Which is fine, you know, but it's still, when you put a number on it like that, it changes things. You know, your perspective changes.
Yeah.
Well, especially understanding that those numbers are so small and life is so fleeting. Like in the moment, life can feel like forever, but really it's not a lot. And you know, do those things now.
No, there came a point in my life where it was I'll try not to get too heavy, but my mom got really sick, and there was a time where we realized that it was like, okay, this is the last time we're gonna go see Christmas lights, and this is the last time, you know, we're gonna do this, and for about a year there was a lot of last times, and it was hard. Like, so it's to, while you know your parents and your family members are healthy, it's great to take time to be there and be around them and do things before, you know, you have to start counting your last times.
So let's swerve for a moment to the theme of connection, and we'll get back.
Did I make it too real? I brought it down too much.
No, it was beautiful. I just didn't have anything meaningful to add to it, but thank you.
We'll get heavy again, and so I'm just going to pace it by injecting connection here, just so it doesn't feel out of place later on. So anyway, COVID. So it didn't feel heavy to me at the time, because being an introvert, it's like, this is blissful. I get to work from home. It's the new standard. I thought it would be there forever, but now, you know, I work at a place where it is the standard, and it will be probably forever. But Silicon Valley is being very aggressive about how much they don't trust people and how much they hate remote work. Being real a-holes about it. Like, they are taking back power aggressively. Anyway, so aside from that, I had realized that it took years for me to realize that COVID had affected me the way that it did, because like I had said before, I got to the point where I wasn't even texting people for a month at a time, and my life was splintering one friend at a time, to the point where I wasn't talking to people, and I realized I wasn't leaving the house 1-2 weeks at a time, and I had been picking off my activities one thing at a time. I just didn't like I had become essentially anhedonic, and had lost interest in a lot of things, to the point where I was just working and then, watching my kid and then going to bed at night, and had very little to myself. And this podcast had completely changed everything around. And so even though it wasn't during COVID, I realized that I had lost all color in my life because of COVID years later. And it was because of the podcast and reconnecting to people one person at a time that I have found everything again. And so I'm trying to evangelize the importance of connection, because it has given me the motivation to do everything else because of it. It all just comes with it. I don't know why, but it gives me gives me intention in life. I don't know. Have Eric and Tucker, you've been doing this longer. Have you felt similarly? Maybe you were just already fine.
What do you mean by doing this longer?
Like, we've been doing the podcast like under a year now, but like I'm working around the house. I'm more intentional with my kid. I'm picking up hobbies. I read 10 books this week. Everything in my life has changed since we started doing this, because I feel like my life is more vibrant and I want to take advantage of every minute I have.
I mean, I feel like this connection that we have through this podcast has helped me, not in the exact same way as you, Shan, to, pursue hobbies and to, have a more color-filled life. But I think that I enjoy having like a project, like a side project that I'm interested in to work on. It's nice to get together and chat about something that I'm passionate about, because I don't have a lot of people close to me, like circles of friends that are as passionate as I am about video games. And so I don't have a lot of people to talk about those things with, particularly indie games. And so I love that I get to do Eric's Indie Corner, because I play all of these little games and I want to talk to someone about them. And my wife is tired of hearing about them, because she, and you know what, she listens and she goes, that sounds cool. And I love her for that. But it's nice to have people who are similarly interested in something and to be able to discuss those things. And that has led to me feeling more fulfilled in that particular regard, to be able to share a hobby and share a passion with a group of people. So
yeah, for me, it's been having some real conversations. I've known Shannon and Eric for a long time now. And I think on this podcast, whether on the podcast or before or after when we're just chatting, I think I've seen you guys more vulnerable, and I've been more vulnerable, and just like learning about what's going on in each other's lives, and like actual true feelings, and that video games are the catalyst for this coming out, I think is super cool. But I feel like I've gotten to know you guys better, and even like having guests on, like we had Eric's friend Lundy, Amelie, who I went to Japan with, but I feel like I'm still getting to know through this podcast, and Scott. Now it's just a really cool catalyst to be able to open up and talk so much more about video games. I feel like, like in high school, talking about video games is just about video games, but this podcast allows us to dive deeper and then start to really, get at the root of each other's souls in a really cool connection way that I didn't think would happen in a format like this. Probably most times when we're getting to record, I'm not really feeling like I want to record, but there's after the fact, it's always like, that was fantastic and I loved it. And I want to do that again. And so
Tucker's coming in real, not wanting to be here every episode. He's like, screw these guys. I want to be here. Whatever.
Yeah.
You don't have to be here.
Oh, I know. But I guess to that point though, it's the after the fact. It's like there's, part of me doesn't want to put the effort into, I guess, making those connections and diving deeper, but then actually in the midst of it and the after the fact, it's like, oh, that was really good. That was really, healing, edifying, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like anything. What's that old adage? Like anything worth doing is hard, or some crap like that. And
anything
and,
worth doing is hard, or some crap like that.
I think it's word for word what it is.
You just put that on a bumper sticker.
Mark that. Mark that. Make that the teaser for the whole video.
I think we should make shirts with it, along with other stuff that weird quotes we've had. But then I totally lost my train of thought. Right. But anyway, yeah. So it's been a connection and a big adage in my life, even when most weeks I don't necessarily want to put forth the effort.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
No notes.
I can relate to that. My wife has always been a big fan of talking to people and going deep. She really likes deep conversations, and I enjoy my deep conversations with my wife. But I rarely had them outside of my marriage, I would say. And it was years and years and years of work, of learning how to be vulnerable with people. Oh, the things that you were talking about, Tucker, reminded me of a book by Brené Brown, if you guys have heard of her. She's fantastic. She wrote a book called Daring Greatly. And it's about being vulnerable, and that's how you can establish real connections with people. So everything that you were saying, Tucker, just sounded like a great summary of what she talks about in that book. If you haven't read it and you like these types of connections and you've seen meaningful relationships blossom because you've been vulnerable with people, then you'll enjoy the book and you'll understand why that happens a little bit better. But it was just kind of in the last little while that I started to realize that a lot of the relationships that I had thought of as being good relationships in my life were actually quite shallow. And being able to sit in a room with somebody, be pleasant, be excited to talk with them, share highlights of your life, catch up, that kind of thing, that doesn't mean it is a deep relationship. Doesn't mean it's a strong connection. It's mostly just cordial. But conversations like this, types of conversations that I've had with some friends and with certain members of my family, where we're really opening up and being vulnerable, has really opened my eyes to my wife's wisdom, of going deep, of being vulnerable, of talking about difficult things, difficult emotions, showing them to people and not being afraid of it. And I think when we have a community like this, like with just you three, you see a small glimpse of other people's lives. You see what they're doing. You get a different perspective. And like the stuff that you are doing now, Shan, it's like you see all of this and it like gives you your own permission to be interesting in a way, like to be an interesting person. And you want that, it can be really motivating as your connection deepens with other people. The connection that you have with yourself grows as well. And your own interest in your own well-being grows as your connection and your interest in other people's well-being grows.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, because I'm fully aware that like half of the reason that anybody goes into a conversation is to hear themselves talk, or maybe it's 90%, but and so like when I show up every week, I want to show off what I've learned so that I can feel validated for sounding smart. But then I also genuinely want to demonstrate that I can listen and hear other people. But also, so this was going to be one of my other questions: how do you connect to other people? Because one of my very favorite ways, and I've been doing this for a very long time, is if I feel like I'm struggling with somebody like an in-law or a distant friend, I'll just be very candid and I'll ask them what's their favorite movie or book or television show. And then I will just go and binge it. And then I'll report back to them the next time I see them. And guess what? There's no movie or show that you can't pretend to like if you just go into it with an open mind.
Yeah. And I don't know, man. There's some.
No, I promise you, like the what is it, the Evil Dead, Sam Raimi.
Yeah,
that's
one that's hard to enjoy, but it's very campy and fun.
It is a very rough movie, but like I can always just suspend it for 2 hours or something, and I just tell myself, like, can you just enjoy this contextually, and can you find like 3 things to say positively about it, so that you can go back to that person and tell them that you loved it, to express excitement and connect to them. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not doing it for me, I'm doing it for them. And in that cognitive dissonance forces me to actually enjoy it. Highlander was another one. Both of these were for the same person, by the way. We have nothing in common.
But darn it, you're doing your best.
Yeah.
And you probably learned a lot about them just watching the show, right?
Exactly. And it's like, you know, I put in a lot of effort. I watched so many movies. I watched like 10 movies in 1 week for that one person. And because I had a lot of work to do for that person. And you know what? It bridged a lot. And we are a lot more convivial than we were before.
If anyone wants to feel closer to me, play all of Mass Effect, watch Gravity Falls.
Yes.
Then you can come talk to me about it. Yeah.
I want to point out that I think that is probably the most growth I've seen out of Shan, of just coming around. Because when I first met Shan, he hated the original Star Wars movies, couldn't stand them, had all these reasons why it was the worst possible movie in the entire world, and he was very convincing about it. But I mean, I don't know, past few years, like Shan has discovered just enjoying movies for what they are, and doesn't have to be objectively good. You can live in the subjectivality. Is that a word?
Sure,
but
it could be a word.
Where like now Shan loves cheesy 80s action movies and can watch movies like Highlander, and you know that objectively by today's standards aren't great movies by any means, but they bring something special to the table to those that watch it, and it can be enjoyed, which is
everything can.
I think the reason I bring that up is I think it's a really cool thing to see for me in real time of how those little nuggets of trying to connect to people can change how you view the world and how you view even media and other people, which is really cool.
Yeah, essentially, like anything can be a 10 out of 10 contextually, especially if you're motivated for somebody else. So you know, take that in mind. That's what I try to do anyway.
I will say, and I probably went into it with the wrong attitude, but I read all 4 Twilight books when I was 19 because the girl I was dating really liked them. And after each book, I had the same thought that I was like, I didn't like that very much. Maybe the next book will be better. And then I finished all 4 of them, and I was like, that's just a lot of my life that I'm not going to get back.
What do you mean you hate Harry Potter? You've seen all 8 movies.
So, and I get what you're saying, Shan. I think most things can be enjoyed if you go into it, but it's also like sometimes it's just not your thing, you know? Like I unironically love the Twilight movies. I think that they're so bad that they're just a delight to watch. Like it's trash movies, and I love it. Like,
well, and another thing that's very important to me is that people just like are objectively so negative these days, and I want to be just incredibly positive about everything, because you know what,
which
I'm
is
not
something
out
I've
there.
never heard come out of Shan's mouth. Well,
it's just like nobody is out there being. Yeah, I'm cynical. I get that, but about other people's art. It's not like I'm in La La Land where I can criticize things. I do, but like, and I could be objective. But the point is that it's like I'm not out there creating things. I don't know how to create, but like I can find things that they did well. Everybody has done something well. Everybody is trying. And I'm not out there accomplishing anything like them. So, you know, you can try to enjoy things. You can be positive. You can find at least something to be positive about.
Yeah, just because something's not 100% your jam doesn't mean you have to criticize it.
And once you realize that
trash.
if something isn't your jam, that doesn't mean that it's objectively bad. It opens up like a whole new world.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Oh,
Like,
and I've talked a few times about games that I'm not a big fan of, but I totally understand why other people like them. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, I think that's a definite thing that you can be.
yes.
Yeah. Also, I just want to point. I hate people that try to evangelize their hate. Like, those people can screw off. All right, go on, Scott.
No, I was just going to say, so I'm part of a book club, and we've got a wide range of personalities in this book club. And we're now at the point where we kind of take turns choosing the book. And there are some people who always choose books that I just really, really don't enjoy, but I always read the book. Because I want to be able to come and talk about it and see what they like and hear their opinion on it. And when we go, I will say this book wasn't for me, but I want to hear their opinions on it, you know. And but there are people in the book club too that hate books and they won't shut up about it at book club. I don't enjoy that as much. But it's nice to be able to
fun to be around negative people.
Yeah,
being negative about everything.
Yeah, but if you can expose yourself to a lot of different ideas, there's a lot of value in that, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, consider this, right? Somebody loves something, they don't want to be around a negative person. A negative person hates something, they're fine being around somebody who loves it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the corollary, like sure they might try to tear that person down, but like they can exist in a world where like somebody loves it and they hate it, whereas like somebody who loves something doesn't want to be around a negative person that hates the thing they love.
Yeah.
Like that just is a bummer. Who wants to be around those people? Don't be that person.
Yeah. That's true. I just
That's
finished
why Sonic
a book
the Hedgehog fans are all introverts, is because they don't want to have to. I'm kidding. I like Sonic the Hedgehog.
I just finished a book earlier this week, and in there the lady was talking about being curious about things, and I like the way that she defined curiosity, at least in the context of her book, and it was that being curious about somebody is being able to stand back and be in awe of somebody else's story. And I like that quite a bit, you know, just really being able to look at something with awe, you know, with genuine curiosity and not just asking questions that are really attached to your own assumptions.
Okay. All right. So next item, atomized media is, I think, a fracturing society, and because nobody is consuming the same thing, there's no gatekeeping. Everybody is slowly going off into a fractured society where like there's no zeitgeist that unifies us. And the big things that do exist, you get influencers out there that think, oh, good, I can run out there and create a video of hatred because algos are driven by hatred, and I can quickly create a culture war around it to divide people. So even the things that are popular, it's suddenly 50-50, and we all have to, you know, review bomb it and tear it apart. So nothing is pure anymore. Nothing other than Paddington. I think Paddington's the only thing that is pure.
Yeah. We've talked about this before. Paddington is the great unifier of humanity. Yeah. Yeah, you talk to someone that doesn't like Paddington, you just cut that person out of your life. You know?
And Ted Lasso.
Yeah. And Ted Lasso.
I haven't watched Ted Lasso, but I have heard only good things. So it's one. It's another one on my list.
4th season, it's being culture warred. So it's survived long enough to be assassinated. So that's where we are now. But the first 3 seasons, I absolutely agree. So anyway, unfortunately, this is just reality. I don't see any way that we get past it. I think it's only going to get worse unless we kill the internet. That would be great. So how
I have to
do
get it
you...
off of Big Ben first before we killed it.
Yeah. So how do you choose what to consume these days? It is so much harder now than it used to be.
It's well, there's the choice paralysis, right? Like you're spoiled for choice, and so you just sit there and look, and you're like, well, there's like 10 different shows that I've been meaning to get to. I'm gonna watch The Office again. Like,
even that I don't watch it anymore because there's like 1,000 podcasts that I realize have caught all my attention.
Yeah, I was gonna say usually I kind of break up my consumption into like learning new things or comfort, and that's kind of my two avenues I go down. So a lot of podcasts are to consume content to become more knowledgeable. A lot of my movie choices, I'm trying to dive deeper into culturally relevant films. Like there was a year, and Shan creamed me in this, but we were both watching kind of this list of 100 most influential movies that have been made, and like we both started going through them around the same time. Shan blew through the list. I'm still nowhere close.
Never underestimate Shan's ability to hyperfixate and cross things
never
off the
challenge
list.
somebody with ADHD to anything. Like I said, I decided to start reading 7 days ago, and I've read 10 books. Like this is just this is how it works for us.
Yeah. So
working hard or hardly working, or porkly warded, which feels bad.
Porkly warded. That's my favorite, like little, I don't know if it's not a GIF, but like the meme that I've ever seen. I showed it to my wife because I thought it was so funny, that thing that it's like for ADHD people, you know, it's either working hard or hardly working. And there's also a third state called hardly working that feels bad. Like, I've just never felt so seen. Like
there's another one where it's the meme of Always Sunny, where like where Mac is like, well, with God, all things are possible, so jot that down.
Well, first off, with God, all things are possible, so jot that down. Yeah,
but
it's when he's at the therapist, I think.
Yeah.
Such a good line. That's not even possible.
Such a good line.
And it's such a stupid meme, but he's like wearing a construction hat and he's wearing like aviators, and he says, well, first of all, with caffeine, like he has ADHD, and he's like, well, first of all, with caffeine and anger, all things are possible.
Do anything.
Yeah.
What was the point we were trying to make?
I have I don't remember.
I can't remember.
I creamed you with
watching
somebody,
these like older movies.
Somebody pulled up a list out. Somebody pulled up a list of the top 100 movies of all time that everybody needs to watch, and I was like, I could do that in 2 weeks, and maybe it took 3.
20 minutes.
I hadn't
watched 5
watched,
at a time. Yeah.
I hadn't watched like 65 of them, and I was watching like 4 to 6 a day.
Oh my gosh.
Shan, are you one of those ADHD people that loves a list? You get a list and there's nothing better than crossing things off the list?
No, I'm not.
I super am.
That
I love
one
a list. Yeah.
I just love media, and I think I love a challenge to consume knowledge. And so any new thing that is presented to me, it's like, well, I've got to be the best at that genre, and I just go all in. Like I told you, there were 3 weeks where I knew more about architecture than anybody I knew.
That's true.
Okay, so before we go too far, I want to know, what kind of books have you been reading this last week?
I read 3 Kafka novels. Well, they weren't all novels. So it was The Castle and Metamorphosis and The Trial. Then let me pull this up so I don't just get lost in thought while I'm talking, which happens for us. Let's see. I just finished Of Mice and Men. I read The Time Machine.
Is a good one.
I realized today, as I was going through The Time Machine, that it's the land of the lost, but in the future instead of the past. So that's fun.
Isn't the land of the lost a different dimension and not either the future or the past? It's the land of the lost.
No, well, I'm talking about the movie where they go back and see dinosaurs. I'm just saying, like, the concept of, like, they go back to a primordial existence with slee stacks. You're right, it's a different dimension, but still, it is a past type of dimension.
Yeah, book is pretty good. Hate both movies.
Yeah, let's see. 1984 and Animal Farm.
Oh, nice.
1984 is a good one.
Yeah. Those are both great. I recently read both of those too.
Yeah, they were fantastic. The Art of War.
Oh, really?
Which only
by Sun Tzu.
Did you know the original title was supposed to be War? What is it good for? It's a deep cut Seinfeld quote for people.
Tucker just goes nice.
I think I mentioned all of them. But George Orwell, I think, was my favorite. I've realized that Kafka's very hard to listen to at 2.5 speed because he intentionally talks in circles. And I wasn't stupid. He just was doing it on purpose.
Yeah, there are some books that you can listen to at like 2.5 or 3 speed sometimes. And others where like 1.2 max, because every sentence is so dense, you just can't.
Yeah. Metamorphosis was fine, but the others too hard.
Anyway, if you're getting into audiobooks, I gotta hook you up.
Yes, I need to talk to you because I'm going into classics so I can sound more pretentious. That's the entire shtick.
There it is. That's the real reason.
That's Shan's entire purpose in life.
We figured it out.
To be the best at being pretentious.
You didn't have to tell us.
It's also, well, it's also because if we're doing this whole podcast thing, then I really like figuring out what all of these directors and writers are referencing. That's really fun to me.
Kafka-esque? Who is that? I don't know.
Yeah. All right. I got the pacing completely wrong. Let's talk about fatherhood now.
Oh boy.
Yay.
Oh my gosh. All right. So Cliff makes a specific note of sacrificing his identity as a war hero to become a father. And at that moment, he had found himself. We bring this up several times throughout the entire podcast. So did you have to sacrifice some part of your identity when you became a father? And who have you become since then? Should I start or?
I mean, yeah, I think 1,000%. For me, like it was a very intentional choice to start a family. My wife and I, especially in the Utah community, are basically grandparents because we waited 10 years to have our first child.
Unheard of.
Well, not your wife. Your wife is an okay age.
Well, she's an okay age, but we still waited 10 years because I robbed the cradle.
Tucker and his child bride.
Yeah. But it was one of those things where it's like fatherhood for me, like, I mean, like at a subconscious level, like I didn't grow up with a father. And so there's this part of me where it's like, okay, I'm going to be the best father figure that I could possibly be. And be something that I never had growing up. And so I needed to make sure that I was ready to actually make that commitment, knowing that there was going to be a lot of sacrifices that I would have to make. And then making sure, my wife we were in a similar spot together, that we were, okay, this is going to be our number one priority forever now. And that was, so yeah, there was a lot of sacrifices. I couldn't tell you specific things, but a lot of, we have to now sacrifice our time. We have to, think of this other human life and all these other decisions that we make on a daily basis. So it's really sacrificing my selfishness to put something, somebody else ahead of me at all times. So for me, it was really sacrificing, myself. And I really can understand what Cliff Unger goes through here, as he literally sacrifices himself to try to save his child, which is really, really meaningful physical representation of kind of what my Ka has had to go through in childhood in the best possible, or in fatherhood in the best possible way. Like zero regrets at all. That was a lot of word soup.
And a lot of ums, but that's fine.
Yeah.
It's good stuff, man.
Oh, thank you.
I'd agree with Tucker that I think that I did have a little bit of a different situation, is where I have always known that I wanted to be a father. It's something that I have.
You're baby hungry AF.
Well,
real baby hungry.
I don't know if I'd call it baby hungry. I'd call it understanding what I wanted out of my life.
Everywhere in all your
yeah,
stuff.
because Shan hid them. Okay, you guys. So when we were living in college, we got we all were roommates. I guess not all, Scott wasn't our roommate, but Shan, Tucker, and I were roommates, and we got like a parenting magazine in the mail one time, because that's what you send to college student areas, is this like parenting magazines. But Shan thought it would be funny to cut out the faces of every baby in that magazine and then hide it all over my stuff. And so it was like inside of my shoes, and like in my drawers with my clothes, and like in the cases of like my video games and movies, and just like all over, hundreds of baby faces all over my stuff. And it's like, no joke, I was finding them for years. It was like after I got married, and we were like packing up our apartment to move to North Carolina, and I found a baby. I don't even remember where, but like in a
Mass
like
Effect
box of
case.
stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what it was. It was in one of my video game cases. I was still finding babies for like 4 or 5 years later. But so Shan liked to tease me about being baby hungry. But what it stemmed from was I was always very self-conscious about my just my general intelligence and my abilities to do things and to be good at stuff. And I was pretty aimless as a teenager, and as a young adult, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and I didn't know how to do things, and very self-conscious, and still am pretty self-conscious about my ability to be an adult and to do adult things and to understand the adult world and stuff like that. And so that was something that was really hard for me. And I was just pretty convinced that like I'd find some kind of blue collar job or some other job that didn't require me to go to college and stuff like that, and I'd make a medium amount of money forever. And I was aimless in that area. I didn't know what I wanted out of that area, because I didn't know myself well enough to know what I would be good enough at for someone to pay me money to do it. And that was something that really worried me a lot in my life. And so the only thing that I really knew about my adult life is something that I wanted, is that I wanted to have kids one day. It's like I wanted to be married and I wanted to have kids. And that was the only thing that I knew. And so when that time came for me, it's something that I had been waiting for forever. And I will never, ever forget the moment when my wife and I went to the doctor and I heard my oldest daughter's heartbeat for the first time. And I know that some people say that like a lot of times for mothers, they click with their babies immediately. And sometimes for fathers, they might not click right away. Sometimes they do. But I would have died for that child the moment I heard that heartbeat. Like I was in it. It was all consuming. It was everything that mattered in my life. It is what I had wanted for my entire life was finally happening. And I have 2 beautiful girls. I love my daughters. They're 8 and 6. And I can't fathom a life of purpose and meaning without them. I have other things in life that I enjoy. I love video games. I really enjoy good stories. I am an artist. I love to draw and to, do other forms of art. And so I love to create things in that way. And I find fulfillment that way. But I think that none of those things would matter to me in the same way without my girls, And so being a parent is something that I've always wanted. It's something that's intrinsic to who I am. And I can't understand a life of purpose without that. And so themes of parenthood always hit me really hard, because I feel like as a person, that's my most identifying characteristic as a person, I think, is that I'm a dad. So,
yeah, when we were delayed in parenthood because my wife had issues with fertility, and I I was temporarily having issues with infertility because I worked with my laptop on my lap, and I didn't realize that was cooking me
telling
alive.
me about that. I think you referred to it as cooking your boys alive.
Yeah. Don't do that. And this was before the M chips in laptops, so it was very inefficient.
It's efficient at other
and
things.
And I think I also put a blanket on my lap on top of that, so there was a lot of insulation.
It's a bad situation all around. Yeah.
Right. So I was in my like mid-20s, and I had just come out of college. I was feeling aimless because I knew I didn't want to do psychology, which I just did to get a degree. I was feeling angry with myself for having wasted my college years, and feeling like, okay, I just got married. I don't know what I've ended up, finally getting my act together. I went to a coding boot camp. I was like, you know what? If the coding is visual, I think I can actually do this. Found a career, got my financial situation in order, started building a house for my first house. That's a miracle. And like everything was starting to come together. And I had always wondered, it's like, do I even want a kid? And then I found out we were having issues with fertility. And I, having ADHD, it's like I have no paucity of interests. I can always find something. And now that I'm coming into money, I had always wanted to travel and become a more fulfilled person by experiencing the world. And so everything was coming together where it's like, I'm finally going to be able to always be doing something and find who I am and be growing forever. But my wife was starting to stall out, and I knew that something was going to have to give. And so we booked our first big trip together as a couple, and we went to Portugal. And by the end of the trip, I knew that it was like, okay, we're going to do a trip. We're going to decide at the end of it, get it out of our system. And then are we going to have a kid? And we decided there in the Algarve at the end of it, you know what? We're going to start trying now. And then we had issues with fertility. We went through IVF. It took another year. And even, going through that, I was like, I still don't know, but you know what? I don't care. I'm just going to let it happen because it's what my wife needs, and I'll figure it out. I just kind of play life one day at a time, and I'll adapt to having a kid. I'll adapt to having a family because that's just who I am. It sounds ridiculous, but that I'm fine with that lifestyle. And it worked that way. I had a kid, and suddenly everything was just, it honestly took a few months, but like my wife was still at work, and I was with my kid for 8 months by myself while working. And those 8 months transformed who I was, absolutely, because I was a caretaker, and I saw what it was to care for an individual and be with her every single day because I was a remote worker. And since she has developed a personality, I was afraid to suspend, my personal life, but so I took on the challenge of bringing her to Japan at 1 year old, which was insane, for 3 weeks. And she had just learned how to walk and it was stubborn just like me, so she had to be walking or be carried. She didn't want to be in the stroller, and Japan is not accommodating to that. So it was chaos. It was pure chaos, and we loved every moment, and I became super endeared to her because I was so impressed with her character and how she came alive out there, and she developed a personality, and everybody fell in love with her because she's this cute little baby. She developed curly hair out there because of the humidity. Just everything about her is so cute. And I had always been upset that I figured out who I was too late in life, and I always have this like regret that I started too late in life to learn and to grow. And now I am working so hard on giving her opportunity early, and I realized that I'm finding meaning in giving her the head start that I felt like I didn't have. and yeah, and so finding meaning through her vicariously is so important to me. And then also realizing that I had started to lose feeling and feel numbness in things that had become routine in my life, and then to experience them by proxy through her as she experiences the world through the first time has given me the joy in everything. So everything I experience for the world for the first time is still fresh and fun and beautiful, but then experiencing them for her as she just lights up is gorgeous. And so everything is beautiful in the world again. Everything is full of light. I didn't know that the world could be this vibrant all the time. And that's what having a kid is. And I didn't know that it could be this way. And I'm about to have a second kid, and now it'll be like this, for the next couple decades. And so that's why it's important to have a kid. It's so that everything can be beautiful again, and that you can have meaning through them.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think, it's beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you, Shan, for sharing all of that. No, that's a beautiful thing. I want to talk a little bit about what fatherhood has meant to me, but while you were talking about learning some of these things a little bit later in your life than you would prefer right now, there's a quote that we have hanging up in our house that we recently put up by F. Scott Fitzgerald that I wanted to read. It says, "For what it's worth, it's never too late, or in my case, too early, to be whatever you want to be. There's no time limit. Start whenever you want. You can change or stay the same. There are no rules to this thing. We can make the best or the worst of it. I hope you see things that startle you. I hope you feel things you never felt before. I hope you meet people who have a different point of view. I hope you live a life you're proud of. And if you're not, I hope you have the courage to start all over again." So that quote has been really meaningful to me lately as I've made some pretty big changes in my life. But compared to you guys, I'm the old man in the room. My oldest is 15 and my youngest is 9. I got a 15, a 13, 11, and one of the things that you learn pretty early is that the kids never stop surprising you. One thing that we often joke about is that our first kid never did and continues to never prepare us for what our second kid will do.
What is that? First and second kids are like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And the same is true for the third kid, and the same is true for the fourth kid. You always heard that kids are going to be different. And you think, maybe a little bit here and there, but we're their parents and they all grew up in the same house. But no, man, all my kids are so different and react to things so differently. And so this point of view and this magical window that you see your kid looking through into the world, Shan, each one provides that in their own beautiful way, and it's wonderful to experience. If my kids are getting older and their problems are becoming more grown up, and that's hard. Their problems aren't cute anymore. And it's difficult to see them experiencing real pain. And there's part of me that wants to pull them out of the world somehow and protect them from that, at the same time knowing that there's no way that I really can. So much of fatherhood in the stage that I'm at is realizing that I have a lot less control than I would ever like to admit. But that doesn't stop me from doing the best that I can and being there in ways that I hope is helpful to them, or at least allow me to sleep at night. When it comes to like what kinds of things did you sacrifice to become a father? It's been long enough that I'm not exactly sure if I could pinpoint exactly what it was, or at least what I would have said back when I became a father. And I don't think you often realize what you sacrificed until years later. Looking back, there were times where I think my wife and I sacrificed ourselves too much. And I know that sounds selfish. and a little bit against what you guys have said too. But it's so easy to lose yourself in raising your kids, and that's there's pros and cons to that. You do need to take care of yourself, and by taking care of yourself, you can be a better father. You need to allow yourself to be interesting. You need to allow yourself to grow. And often I look back at things that I sacrificed that I didn't need to, and I think I could have been a better father had I not. Anyway, Eric, what did you want to say?
Well, I just wanted to agree with that. Like we were all talking, lovey-dovey about being a parent and how it's super important and meaningful, which it absolutely is, but it's incredibly difficult and to kind of, for example, feeling like maybe you sacrifice too much. My wife and I, we have this pattern. We like to do things all at once for some reason. Like when we got married, and then a few months later we were pregnant, and then we moved across the country and we opened a business and had a baby. And it just like all of these things just like happened all at the same time.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah. Like we opened our business when my oldest was 2 months old. And so because of that, it was a Jamba Juice. We owned a Jamba Juice, which is a smoothie place. And we are like, one of us had to be there all the time, and we were open 7 days a week. So for the first like 6 months that store was open, I didn't have a single day off. I worked 7 days a week, and one of us would work in the morning and one of us would work at night. And we would drive there with Gwen, my oldest daughter, who was a baby, and we would just switch places. And so we were like, the three of us were never together for the first like about 5 months of Gwen's life. It was like it was Gwen and dad or Gwen and mom, and that, like, we probably could have found a different way to do that. We could have hired more people. We could have, tried something to get us like one evening a week or something, but that's what we did. And it's, so there's times where you might push yourself a little bit too far as a parent and think like, I might have overdone that a little bit, but we're all doing this for the first time. Like you're being a parent for the first time. I like to joke about like when kids are little and they do something ridiculous, you're like, why would you do that? It's like, well, this is their first time being a person. They don't know how to do it yet. You got to teach them how. That's your job as a parent, is to teach them how to be a person. Like,
yeah.
And so you sometimes you can sacrifice too much, but it's trying to find that balance.
Parting thoughts?
Death Stranding is great stuff.
Yeah.
Play it all the time.
Connection and love are key to being happy.
Yeah.
And a better world.
Yeah. I loved the game, and I love that I got to know you guys through the game. So it's always going to be special to me.
Now we're going to miss you. I feel like it's going to be weird recording without you on the next one. We'll have to find ways to include you here and there.
Yeah. I think I may have to miss the next big game, just with my schedule in the summer. But if I can jump in on some of the indie corners, I would love to.
Yeah, you send me a list of games you'd like to be a part of, and chances are pretty good that I've at least heard of them and maybe played them already.
Yeah,
so
that's right. Let me make a note so I don't forget to do that.
This is a little out of place, but it's something that I wanted to share with people. But if you have issues with people, just remember that the greatest hurdle you can overcome in reconnecting with people is realizing that most people are trying their best to do what they think is right. Most people are acting in good faith, the same that you are. So even if you disagree on politics or just on something subjective and dumb, just remember that they think that they are acting in good faith and that they are a good person too, and they're not acting maliciously. And if you can just hold that in place while also disagreeing with them on whatever that dumb thing is, then you can still like that person. And once I overcame that little thing, I opened my world to so many people that I had compartmentalized, and my world became a lot richer because I was able to have conversations with a lot more people that I didn't understand before, and they are very interesting. So
yeah, I'd echo that.
Yeah,
just yeah. when you realize people are doing the best they know how, it really changes how you view everybody in the entire world.
Everyone's a hero on their own narrative, right?
Mm-hmm. Algos in the media are trying to make you think that everybody is malicious and evil and acting that way on purpose, and it's just not true.
Yeah, not for like 90% of people. Most people are just doing what they think is right.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, that's going to do it for us today. Please like, comment, subscribe. You can find us wherever you find podcasts, and follow Eric's Indie Corners on Thursdays. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. That was a very somber goodbye.
Well, it's sad.
Outro. Bleep-a-doof, bleep-a-deep, bloop-a-dee-blow.